joining us, the host of College Game Day since 2015, Rece Davis and ESPN. Rece, good morning. Are you ready to go?
We're getting there, Bo. I don't want the great Lee Corso. I remember a few years ago I was calling him about this time of year, and I said, well, LC can't wait. And he said, sweetheart, don't wish it away. So yeah. I'm very eager to see it. We're always all excited about football season, but hey, let's soak up these last few days of summer also.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Lee for a second. We're going to have one more Lee Corso headgear prediction, and I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about your relationship and what Lee has meant to College Game Day.
He's meant everything to College Game Day. There's no way that this show survives or flourishes to the level that it has without Lee Corso. I think he really changed the way people consumed and accepted some irreverence and humor and spontaneity in terms of covering college football. Now, Beano Cook before him was a pretty irreverent guy, but LC sort of, and a great guy, by the way, and an icon. But LC elevated the art form, and he connected with the crowd, and he let the fans know it was okay to be as zany as they are because he was. And he's also he was a terrific coach. He's a terrific teammate, and he was a great friend and still is a great friend to me. I've put it this way a lot of times. He worked with Fowler for a really long time, 25 years. I think it would have been pretty easy, despite the fact that I'd been in the studio covering college football for 16 years prior to taking over Game Day. I'd been at ESPN for 20 years, so I wasn't some young buck. But even so, it still would have been very easy for Lee to say, "Oh, well, okay, this has changed. I'm the cornerstone of College Game Day, and I don't like change. So let's wait and see how this works out." And no, not at all. Not for 1 second. It was, "Hey, okay, Rece Davis. All right, here we go, sweetheart. We're going to kill him." And every week it was always, "We're going to kill him." And the thing, I'll miss a ton, Bo, about him not being there every week. But the thing I think I will miss the most is coming down on Friday mornings to go over for the production meeting. LC standing there with his briefcase and his cup of coffee, waiting on his ride, and said, "How's your family? Well, my daughter's an actress. What's the actress doing? Has she got a Broadway part yet? My son's a professional baseball player. How's the baseball going?" He remembered things, and he always wanted to sincerely know about your family, and he was also committed to the good of the show.
Yeah. It's been so fun to watch over the years. And College Game Day has just been such a staple of the football season and our Saturday mornings beginning, and it continues to evolve. And before we get into the season a little bit, I think people might find it a little interesting just to kind of hear what your day's like on a College Game Day, how early you get going, what it's like just kind of getting everyone together and then trying to manage the chaos of the personalities that can go rogue at any moment on that show.
Well, we'll work backwards on that. I think, first of all, you want to let them go rogue, but maintain some level of control. I used to bristle at this, Bo, but in a lot of ways, you're like the dad, hopefully the fun dad. You don't want to stifle. You don't want to stifle the. I just thought of a Phil Dunphy quote. I love Modern Family. I'm the fun dad. I know all the lyrics to the songs from High School Musical. But anyway, you want to give them. You don't want to do anything that would get in the way of the brilliance of the spontaneity of someone like Pat McAfee. There's no reason to harness Nick Saban, and obviously Kirk and Desmond are cornerstones and unbelievable commodities. But you want to run the show, and you need to run the show. That's why you're there, and you're also there to challenge them, to inject some opinion of your own when it's appropriate, and to sort of set the stage for the whole thing. So it's really fun, because the good thing about all of those guys is that they are tremendous teammates and have respect for one another, and they want everyone to flourish. And so that makes that part of it pretty easy. Sometimes, if you have to end a discussion because you've had enough, that you think your gut tells you it's run its course, and they still have, things they want to say, you might have to step in and do that. Or sometimes it's you're just helping the producer, and he's like, I'm going to miss the top of the hour break. I can't, you've got to get me out of here. And so you have to do that. So there's some of that aspect to it. As far as when I get there, I try to get there roughly 2.5 hours before kickoff, meaning kickoff of the show. Yeah. So we're on Eastern time. I try to arrive at 6:30. I used to get there even earlier and found that after a while you're just sort of sitting there because the preparation's done. I do like to arrive before everyone else gets there, just the producers, me, some of our staff, a little quieter, a little less chaotic, go over the final things. I usually go out and greet the early arrivers from the students and maybe bring them some donuts or throw out some T-shirts or something like that. So that's kind of how the morning goes. And then, that adrenaline rush comes about, 8:59, 45, and then off we go.
Is Saban going to take the headgear role after LC has his final college game day appearance?
No. Now I'm making a bit of a unilateral decision on that. First of all, I don't think Nick has any interest in doing that. Wouldn't want to do it. Yeah. And the second part of it, Bo, and I would love to, because of my respect for you, I wish that you were the first person I've told this, but you won't be. Anybody that tries to put on a headgear at the end of our show, I will form tackle, if not clothesline them, and might get ejected for targeting. That's LC's, man. Yeah, and we need. This show has always been genuine and authentic. Now, I realize that a critic could say, "What exactly is not pre-planned, genuine, or spontaneous and authentic about?" About a retired football coach grabbing a giant mascot head and putting it on his head. Well, I mean, it has become a cornerstone, but it started just as an idea. Hey, let me try this. Allison Herbstreit, can you get the Brutus Buckeye head? I don't think it is part of the show, but it's really LC, Yeah, and I sort of think that while we'll always give it a nod and pay tribute to it, I think there's certain things that belong to individuals, and I think that belongs to Lee Corso. Yeah. I mean, will somebody in some spontaneous moment someday, maybe, but in terms of saying, okay, well, he's gone now, now Nick or Pat or Desmond or Kirk, it's your job to put on the mascot head. I don't think that's the right way to go.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what you guys do next, and as you continue to evolve that show, because it's been fun, and I got so much respect for it and getting better every year.
Well, but one of the things that's happened, and again, I talk about being organic and authentic in what we do, is Pat's brilliance at the end of the show with the whether it's a chant or just, kind of being Pat McAfee has become kind of a send-off of its own. We almost had dual send-offs last year. Whatever Pat's pick was, that, he delivered with incredible showmanship, and then you would cap it with Lee's mascot head. So, I think it's almost happened, without us sitting in a room someplace or sitting in one of our myriad summer meetings going, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to end the show? Look, it'll be different without that mascot head. I always used to joke because I love setting the stage with the scene sets in the morning. And, and then obviously the entire show built toward that headgear moment. And I would often joke with LC, a minute or two before the show starts. I would say, hey, LC, a minute here at the top, 2 minutes at the end. I would say scene set, headgear. The rest of it's just filler, baby. Obviously we're joking, but it was something. The whole show sort of built to that headgear moment, and even though I think that in fact I know that Pat's pick has become a must-see moment. It's a crescendo moment. I understand that it is going to be different because, people waited on to see whose mascot head LC was going to put on.
Rece Davis, host of College Game Day. We got one more Saturday without it, and then here it comes. What are the story? There's so many storylines I know that you've looked at. Do you have some favorite storylines that you're looking forward to talking about or watching unfold for the upcoming college football season?
Well, we had a meeting. We had a meeting last week, and before the meeting, I sent out an email. So basically, I'm not going to bore you by reading the entire email to you, but just a few of the things I think that you need to remind people early on, or just a couple things. The seeding changes for the playoff. These kind of big picture deals. In fact, Notre Dame can get a bye now. I think the quarterback transitions for the teams that we expect, at least early, to be good are fascinating. And dovetailing in with that is that the coverage of Arch Manning is probably going to be like the coverage of Tim Tebow. That's sort of my feel on it. I almost feel like you can't get enough Arch. And I realize that in your market right now that the people, I hope nobody crashed their car or, spilled their coffee or anything like that. I understand. But, he's a highly talented guy at, preseason #1 program. He has the name, but he's a gifted guy, and he's handled this thing with incredible grace up to this point. I think those are like the biggest ones, but you also have all of these teams with the new quarterbacks who have other questions too. I mean, we figure Ohio State and Texas are going to be great on the lines of scrimmage because they've recruited so well and used the portal well. But there are new faces there, and while Arch is gifted, he's only started a couple of games. Ohio State doesn't have a guy that started a game. So, I think they're not the only ones. Notre Dame, Alabama, even Georgia. I mean, Gunnar Stockton played in the playoff last year and started the game, but, we don't know. So you've got a lot of these highly ranked teams that have huge quarterback questions among their questions. And maybe, there are some with more experienced quarterbacks and maybe flying under the radar a little bit that can sort of upset this idea, at least the starting point that we have of who's in the top 10.
Is it not wide open, but is it a more wide open race for the national championship this year than most years, in your opinion?
I think it depends on how you define that. I still think that top to bottom roster talent level thing, there are probably 7 or 8 teams that, as I look at it right now. Now, look, I'm happy to be proven wrong on that. Someone that's not ranked come firing in there to actually win the national championship. Of course, there are tons of teams that can pull an Indiana or an SMU, or Boise State. Although I think we expected Boise because of its position in the group of 5. But there are tons of teams that can get into the playoff. But I would probably limit it as mostly the usual suspects in terms of being able to navigate that gauntlet and win the national championship.
Before I get you out of here, Rece, it's not like you're breaking down Arkansas every day as you get ready for your first college game day at Ohio State, Texas.
I did a little extra digging after you texted the other day. Now, I'd done my preseason work on Arkansas, but when you texted and asked me to be on, I was like, okay, let's give Arkansas a little.
All right, we're going to open-ended question.
I've given them a little extra look.
Let's go. Open-ended question, Rece. What do you have on Arkansas?
I think they'll be improved. Taylor Green is one of those guys, and I think I saw you're going to have him on your show later today, or maybe you already have. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was on earlier, from breakfast.
Okay, all right. So I'll have to go back and listen to that. Highly talented guy, but obviously they're replacing all of those receivers. Defense has to be better. And I know Arkansas fans who know this, and I apologize that I didn't realize this until yesterday when I was looking. I had no idea how often they fumbled the football last year.
Yeah.
No idea. I mean, I knew they had turnover issues. Like, I had my stats, like they're -8 in turnovers. So, I mean, I knew that. And I thought back to games last year. I was like, oh, yeah, they gave up the ball a lot. At 30 fumbles? I know they didn't
crazy.
lose all of them, but you look at the stats and you basically fumbles are 50-50 over the course of time. And if you lose like 70% of your fumbles, you have bad luck on fumbles. Arkansas didn't even really have bad luck, and they lost 14 of them, second most in the country. Don't fumble the ball. That's number one. But I think they'll be improved. I think they could go, if they stay in all the games, I think if they go 7-5, that could be a really good season because that schedule is brutal. Brutal. So I was breaking it down, and I think if you can get to Tennessee at, what would that be, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can get to Tennessee with no more than 2 losses, and if you only have 1 loss, now you might be on to something, because then you get through that. Maybe you get through Tennessee, you're 4-2, and maybe you get a little something going there. And as you build confidence, maybe you play better.
Yeah.
So I really think the whole thing cannot lose that game at Memphis. Memphis they're completely new. Everybody's gone. Everybody's new coming in from Memphis. Can't lose that game. If you can pull the upset at Ole Miss, great. If you can knock off Notre Dame at home, great. Cannot lose the Memphis game. That's a pivot point to me for the early part to see what kind of season Arkansas is going to have.
That's a great look at it. Great stuff, Rece. Can't wait to do it again. Can't wait to watch you guys have another great year of College Game Day. And then, of course, I'll see you around the college football playoff. But thanks for always making time for us, man. You're the best. Love what you do.
Well, the feeling's mutual, Bo. You're the man. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, man. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the last couple days of summer before you head off to College Game Day. It's 8:20. Rece Davis, longtime host, College Game Day, longtime college football personality at ESPN, with us on the Chuck and Bo Show.